I am Leslie Gina. I am the director of the art programs here. And I make a lot of flyers. I make flyers all the time for all the different art classes we do and just all kinds of art shows and all that. So let's go ahead and open up Publisher. I'm going to go ahead and use the 2007 version that is on the computers down here. I normally use the 2010 on our work computers, but they're different in the way they're laid out, but you can do all the same things on them from what I can tell. So I'll go ahead and use 2007. Then at the end, I'll just show you what 2010 looks like. But for your purposes, the 2007 version is on all the computers down here, so pretty easy to access. Okay, so in your All Programs folder, you can find it in the Microsoft Office folder. And if you scroll down, it's Microsoft Office Publisher, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down, 2007. Let's go ahead and open that one. So much like Word, it gives you options for what kind of document you want to open up. Blank page sizes is your first folder there. For our purposes, let's just do 8.5 by 11. So if you scroll down, it's that letter-sized portrait orientation. Pretty standard size. Most paper is 8.5 by 11, so it's good to always, when you're making a flyer or something, it's a good size to go with. Okay, so if you click on that, it'll take you to that blank page. So I put a couple of photos and like the PRC logo and stuff like that on my desktop, just because those are things I always use when I'm making flyers. In terms of making flyers, I like to keep things really simple. I'll show you the one that I made first. Oh, of course. Okay, so very, very, very simple, as you can see. You want a header at the top there, something that tells you a little more about what the flyer is for, about that title, the when, the where, and the contact information. And I always put a picture because I just always do pictures. And then I usually do some kind of a logo or something at the bottom. So that's a really simple format. And this way you can move things around wherever you want them. And what I like about Publisher, if we go back to our blank thing, our blank document, is that it gives you, see this blue square here? It gives you kind of a border so that I always work in that border because I know when it prints, nothing's going to get all funky and it's not going to be out, it's not going to cut something off. So if you stick with that square, it's kind of helpful so that you know that nothing will get cut off, right? So the most important, I would say the most important header up there, if you look at your toolbar, you have File, Edit, View, Insert. Insert is where you can insert any kind of object that you want to put in your flyer. So I almost always start with a picture so I know how big I want to make the picture. So if you go Insert and scroll down to Picture, it'll give you some options. So let's ignore clip art because again I don't think we have it installed on there. And we'll do From File. So hopefully you guys have some kind of random photo on there that someone left at some point when they were using the TTC computer. Hopefully it's something, but anything you want to use is fine because it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter the quality. Oh, I have Mickey Mouse on here. Maybe I'll put Mickey Mouse on. But basically it'll insert whatever photo you choose and it'll just kind of put it usually kind of in the middle of the page, and then you can move it around. And Publisher, you can just literally stick it anywhere you want, right? So for right now, I'm going to put them in the middle. I'm going to make them a little bigger. I always like to have the image kind of underneath whatever the header is going to be. You can actually insert a header, but I find it's better to go to Insert and make a text box. So Publisher, unlike Word, Publisher doesn't give you a cursor to start typing freely as Word does, right? So when you open up Word, you start typing, your text will automatically be displayed because there's always a cursor there. For publisher, you have to insert a text box. So if you go insert text box, you get a plus sign. So that plus is what your cursor looks like for now. The plus is how you create the box. So when you click and drag it, it's going to create a text box. And you can do this on Word too. Word allows you to create text box, which is nice. And then you've got your cursor there. So if you start typing, join our free class. I just spelled it right. Then you can highlight it much like you would in Word and go to go to your text commands and change the font size. You know, change it to whatever font you want. If it's a header, you can make it, you know, big because it's the first thing that people will see, so you want to draw attention to it. So go ahead and put whatever kind of text you want in there. Another thing you can do with a text box is if you want to put a border on it. So insert, I would say, is the most important of our tabs up there, but format is a close second. Format's a good one to know. Format will let you add borders, fill in a color on your text box, whatever you want to do. But if you go down to text box there, now, and just to show you quickly, if you didn't click on this text box and it wasn't highlighted with the dots around it, and you went to the format menu, text box would not pop up. So you have to highlight what you want. You have to highlight the object that you want to format. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you actually click on the text box and make sure that it's selected, your format menu will bring that up. So go ahead and click on text box. And so you can see all the different things you can do. Fill means, you know, whatever you'd put in the background. So right now it's on no fill. You can fill it with a color. Line is your outline, so you can say no line would mean there would not be an outline around the box. If you make it a color, it'll then give you options for, do you want a dashed line? Do you want a solid line? Different styles, the different sizes. Border art will give you some options for if you want border, and these are some clip art things that Microsoft kind of gives you. Personally, I find a lot of these kind of silly, but there might be one that applies to the flyer that you're doing. I tend to, you know, again, and maybe it's because I'm the art director, I tend to make my own borders, but, you know. Okay, so these are the various kind of things you can do for...
Now, if you did want to make your own borders, how do you do that?
Well, I draw something and scan it, so people might not want to do that, but you can scan something and bring it in as you would a picture, and then, yeah. So if you were to, like, draw something or create something on another program, you could make just a hand-done border and then scan it, yeah. You probably can draw a border on here. I'm sure you can. I just don't think the Microsoft drawing tools are quite as good as they could be.
Can you make such a border around your photo or clip art?
Yes, you can. Good question. I will show you that. Anyway, so other than this menu, size is just, you know, the size of the box. Layout is if you wanted an image to be, and it gives you examples of all these with this cute little dog. If you want the image to, if the text to like wrap around the image, if you want it just on the top and bottom, if you want it to just be behind it, you can do all that. But in our purpose, this is just a text box. There's no picture there right now, so. But anyway, so there you go. Now, for creating a border for the photo, if you select your photo so that that's the one that's highlighted, You don't actually even have to click format. It gives you this nice little format tool palette, we'll say. And you can, what's nice too is when you put your mouse over it, it will tell you what all these fancy pictures mean, right? So this third one is for adjusting color. So you can make it black and white, and Mickey's black and white. Grayscale, automatic is what it is. I don't know what washout does. No, it just basically lightens it, which could come in handy if ever you wanted to put text in front of something. You can play with contrast. You can crop. So if you want to crop, click on the crop tool, and then it gives you these lines in the corners. And if you pull those up, it'll crop the picture where you want it. And if you double click, it'll, oops, no. Oh, it'll just do it automatically. Good, okay. This is again that text wrapping. Since we don't have text right now, we don't really need to worry about that. This format picture, this paint bucket kind of thing, is where you'll find the borders. So same thing with the text box. That color and lines, you can choose a border by picking the color and then the type of line. Yeah.
Leslie,
Yeah.
what's the reset picture at the end?
Reset picture, I think
it's
means
just my picture of
it
order.
will revert it to the original, like so before I cropped it and all that, but let's see what it does to mine. Yeah, I think it should technically go back to the original image. Another thing you can do, if you decide you don't want Mickey or whatever picture you've got after all, if you left click, no, right click, sorry. Right click. If you right click on the picture, this menu comes up here. Does that happen for everybody? Mm-hmm. Okay. You can go to change picture and pick a different picture. Which is nice because you don't have to go back to insert, which is, you know, only one extra step, but, you know, just a little shortcut there. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the picture that I had. Okay. So if you decide that you want to change the scale, but you don't, you want to keep it, you want to keep the aspect ratio locked, which basically means you don't want the width and height to be distorted at all. If you click on the corner and you start trying to move it, it'll make sure that the width and the length stay proportionate, or the width and the height stay proportionate. So if you wanted to smush it, you know, horizontally, move it from the top or bottom. If you wanted to smush it vertically, move it from a side. But if you want to keep the length and height proportionate, then always move it from the corner. Okay, so everyone has a picture and some kind of header. And again, I try not to let things exceed this blue line. You can if you want just to play, and you can always go File, Print Preview, just to make sure that the edges are still intact. Which they are, so that's good. And the only reason it's black and white is because the printer in here that it's set up to is a black and white printer. So. So now, let's say I want to put a little more information on the flyer that says, when is this class or event or whatever. Again, I would go to Insert Text Box and draw another text box that kind of fits in this space. Or if you want it under the picture, that's fine too. And I would say,
I'm sorry, how did you do that? Oh.
here, I'll go back. Insert Text Box. Then it should give you a plus sign, right? Then you can click and drag the size of the text box that you want. Did it work? Okay, perfect. So then you can just type in there whatever more information about this event. I like to do like a when, where, you know, that kind of thing. Just because that always seems to be a good format. And then you can size it, whatever you want to size it to.
What was that size?
So actually, right above, it always gives you this font menu here. So if
I
you,
was looking at two places.
yeah, I know, there's a lot to look at. But if you highlight it,
Right.
if you highlight the text, it definitely will give you that. Then you can bold it or, you know, center it or whatever you want to do. So then let's say you decided, oh, I'd rather have this information underneath the picture. You can move them around pretty easily.
How
Let's,
did you move that again? I'm sorry.
so if you click on whatever you want to move, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can move it down just with holding on it and moving your arrow around.
Okay.
The other way to move, which I actually like to do too, is if you'll notice on your keyboard there are arrows, right? To the left of the number pad. If you have something selected and you just start pressing down, if you just want to like nudge something slightly down and not like really move it, that's a really nice way to do it
And
by
you
just
have to have your
tapping those
cursor-
arrows. You have to select the object. So click on whatever that object is, whether it's the picture or the text box. Now, with a text box, if you click on it, you want to make sure that it's not the cursor that you're clicking on, because that will not allow you to move the text box. If you click kind of the outline of the box and the cursor is not blinking in there, then you can move it,
Oh, okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's say that you actually wanted this text box to be on top of the picture. So first what I like to do is, and again, I think you can right click when you've highlighted inside the text box and you see that format text box. That'll pull up your menu. So if I want it on top of the picture, I can decide if I want to have it as a filled block or with no kind of color in the background. So let's say I decide I want it to be orange like my header. Then I can click OK. And then I can move it wherever I want. And you'll be able to see it because I've picked that orange background color. Let's say I decide that I actually don't like the way that band looks and I want the picture to just be the background of that box. Then I would go ahead and go back to Format Text Box and say No Fill, which means there won't be a background. But now I probably want to change, like I'll hit OK, but now I might want to change the font color so that you can see it a little better. Which, to do that, is the letter A with the color band underneath. That's how you would change the color of the font. So I'm going to go ahead and pick orange because that's bright. And this is the kind of thing where you kind of have to play around. It depends on what your image is like, and everything prints a little differently, so you always want to kind of test it on whatever printer you're using. But in this case, if I really wanted this to show up, I would probably make the text a little bigger. And in order to do that, I want to make my text box a little bigger so that it can accommodate bigger text. Right? And then I think my image on this side is really busy. So I think what I would do in this case is this side is more, not as much going on. It might be easier to see. So I would, push this over by resizing the box. And then maybe I'd even make this text a little smaller now that it's going this way. I strongly dislike hyphens. I don't like it when my words are cut off in the middle and there's a hyphen and the word goes on to the next line. For some reason that really bothers me. Might just be me, but so when I'm making a flyer or something, I like to have all the words on their own line, if that makes sense. Okay, does that make sense for everyone? Is that easy enough to follow? Another thing you can do is, let's say you had your flyer required more information, or whatever you're making required a little more information, and you had, I'm just going to type random stuff, more info, whatever. And let's say you decided, let's say you had a picture that was, and I'm just going to, again, I'm going to kind of smush this a little. Let's say you had a picture that was a little more vertical in nature. You could do text alongside a picture. So you can always reshape your box, whether it's a picture box or a text box, to fit the space that you want it to fit.
Doesn't Word do that? Allow you to do the same?
I think Word does do that. Yeah, Word should do that if you make a text box. Not with just straight text, I don't think. I think you have to make a text box in Word in order for it to, yeah. So this kind of transfers over. I'm guessing Word lets you do this, but if you want to, let's say I had a border on this one so it was easier to see. So I'm going to, again, go Format Text Box, and under Line, I'm going to say, let's give it a black border. And let's say I wanted them to be the same, right? Let's say I had a lot more text here. Text, whatever. Text, whatever. If I want them to be aligned together, if you click the text box and the picture, Arrange, our tab up here, Arrange, is a good one to know. It'll let you align. So we go down to Align or Distribute, and I want to align middle. It's going to make sure, and they probably already were pretty aligned, it's going to make sure that they are aligned in the middle. Now, let's say I wanted them, let's say, you know, one was a lot lower. If you do that again, Align, oops, right, you got to click both of them. It'll, you know, put them together. And then if you decide that you want them both to go higher up, like closer to the header, they're both still selected, so you can move them together with the arrow keys. You can also group them if you don't want to have to deal, if you always want them to move together. There's a group function under Arrange. You can also rotate or flip things. So let's say I want this picture rotated. You can rotate 90 degrees left or right, and if you just keep doing it, it'll circle all the way around 180, 360. You can also free rotate. What that means is you take the corner, and this little arrow with the circle is your rotate tool, and you can rotate it so that it takes on whatever, you know, whatever angle you want it to take on. And I'm sure Microsoft Word lets you do that too.
So right now, with that border, that means your flyer will not print edge to edge. There will be a white border.
There would be a white border, right. So you can create a bleed flyer, which means you can pull the images all the way. However, some printers do not print bleed. It just depends on the, yeah. So like, I don't even know what kind of, well, I kind of might, actually, but some desktop printers have that, those, I don't know what they're called, but the tray kind of holds the paper in,
Right.
and you can't get the ink past that tray because that's where it grips the paper,
Right,
you know?
that's
Yeah.
what good point.
So you might always end up with, you know, a little whiteboard or even on the sides.
Thank you.
Yep.
Leslie?
Yes.
In the olden days, there used to be rulers
Yep.
in here. Where are they?
I bet that they are View. Go under View, Rulers, and oh, they were just there. So there. Mine were actually there, but you can hide them or move them with the View Rulers, and then you should be able to drag them. Like click on it and drag it down. Oops. Maybe not.
Okay, thank you.
Can you? I don't know.
Or I
Yeah,
think
there
you're
we go.
making- yeah, correct.
Yeah, in the corner you can move them. So if you really needed to make sure something was exactly 4 inches, you know,
How did you move it again?
you click on this white corner up here,
Okay.
and you should be able to move them up and down. Yeah.
Excellent.
One other thing that I do kind of want to show you, because it's kind of fun to do, I'm going to actually get rid of my photo since it's kind of in the way right now. If you have a text box and you decide that you want the background to be a picture or, you know, a pattern or whatever, when you go to that format text box, the fill, which is the background of your text box, you can do fill effects, and it gives you a bunch of options. So you can do a gradient, and it shows you here what all those gradients would look like. You can do different textures. These are, again, preloaded kind of samples that Word puts on there that you can play with. Pattern, which is just really old school. That reminds me of like ones we used to use on Microsoft Paint back in the 80s. But and then picture. So then you can select a picture to put in the background. So I'm going to go back to my little artsy picture here. If you click Lock Picture Aspect Ratio, it'll make sure that the picture doesn't get distorted.
Where did you get the fill effects
So,
again? I'm sorry, I missed.
no problem.
So format,
So when you go Format, see this first top part that says Fill? If you click the arrow next to it, it's a drop down, and see Fill Effects on the bottom there?
format text box.
Format text box, yep. Colors and lines, and then Fill Effects, and that gives you that window of options. Yep. So, if you click OK, it'll show you the picture that you've selected in this preview part right here. What I tend to like to do, and it really depends on what you're doing, I like to make the picture a little bit transparent so that you can read the text above it a little better. So underneath this color part, this fill color, there's a transparency bar, and that's a sliding bar. The more you slide it, the higher the percentage gets, the more transparent it becomes, and you can see that level of transparency. It previews it there. So I've just made it 34% transparent, and now you can read the text a little better, and it becomes kind of a background image rather than like a photo that you're focusing on. Sometimes I like to even make a photo be the entire background of my flyer. I think I have an example where I did that. Not that one. What's version 2? Yeah, that one. Where the photo, and again, this may be because I am an artist and I like to have a lot of pictures, and but the photo becomes the entire background. And now, as you can see, and you asked a great question about borders, even though it's a bleed, which means it goes all the way to the edges on my on the computer. If you print preview, it'll show you what it would look like if you printed it. And in this case, and I don't know why the preview always takes so long. In this case, it's going to give you a border just because of the way it's either set on the printer or the way this printer runs. But it'll always at least show you, so you know what you be getting. But if you take you can insert a photo and drag it all the way to the edges to make it fill that page, and then you can play with text boxes over top. Or you could make a text box that fills the whole page and do that fill background if you want it to be more transparent. So it gives you kind of options on how to play with things and make things look more interesting. Let's go though back really quick to our new, when we go File, New, and the blank page sizes. This gives you a bunch of different options of pages. So like A5 is kind of like a half sheet, right? It's half of an 8.5 by 11 about. I mean, again, you have to be aware of like what your printer would print. But you can also scroll down here and create a custom page size. So if you knew you needed something that was 5 by 7, and you wanted to make sure it was 5 by 7, you can create custom page and then put in your width and your height to match whatever you need it to match. There's 5. And it's always going to be in inches unless I think it's always just going to be in inches. And then it gives you that, so now it's called your new page, and you can see it's 5 by 7, and if you click on that, and you look at the ruler, 5, by 7. So it makes it easier rather than trying to use an 8.5 by 11 and put an actual 5 by 7 image on there. You can just make sure that your document itself is the correct image size for if you were taking it to a printer or something, or if your printer could print on smaller paper or whatever. So you can put any size in, I think, and it will do whatever size you want. Let's go back to our new, if we were going to open a new document. So after I've just showed you how to meticulously create a flyer, you can also go to the flyers templates. Now
How do we get that?
go to File New. Your File New menu brings up blank page sizes, but it also brings up templates for a bunch of different things you might want to create. So brochures, flyers, business cards. Templates are great for just plugging things in, and this is really similar to Word too, right? Word has templates you can use for resumes or whatever, letters. I find that it's can be more work sometimes because I'm always editing things and then I want to move things because that's just how my brain works. So, but what's nice about these templates is that it gives you a place to just then. You can highlight and type in whatever you need. If you can, the picture is a placeholder that they give you in the templates, so you can again change the picture by right-clicking and going change picture and putting your own picture in there. It always gives you a spot for your logo, so if you have a logo, you can put it in there, or you can just delete it. So again, templates are nice, but it ends up being a lot to kind of play with that I almost think you're better off creating something more simple that, especially if you're just doing something really simple with just an image, a header, and some font. Like, you don't need all this, stuff, I guess.
It's like you have to put in your company colors and company logo.
Right,
Bang, it's there all the time.
right.
You have to resize it.
Right, yep. That is helpful. So if you were always creating the same kind of flyer that had the same, then you could save this and have that be, you can save your own templates. So you can make one with the logo on the bottom or the top or wherever. And if you had a sidebar of something like this, but with text or something, then yeah, you could always save that as a template. So that's helpful. I'll just click on one. Arrows, sure. Okay. It'll give you, like, let's say this is probably like a trifold brochure, right? So it gives you the 3 sections with the one all the way on the right being the front, because if you think about it folding up, that would be kind of the front panel. This being kind of the back if it would, or this being, I guess, the back if it would fold. And again, I think if you go to print preview, it'll show you what it would look like when it prints it on a page.
Where's print preview?
If you go File and scroll down to print preview. Now I don't know. Yeah, this is 8.5 by 11, so this would be something you would just print on a regular sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper and then fold up.
What would the interior look like? I mean,
right, so that's a good question.
Down at the bottom, you have a 1 and 2.
Yes, there you go.
yeah,
Yep, yeah, good call. Yep. You can do a blank booklet, File New, and again, this blank page sizes. So again, these are blank, no actual templates. And you scroll down. You can do different kinds of advertisements. And then these booklets. So let's say you want to do a half booklet, like an 8.5 by 11 that's folded in half with different pages. Publisher groups things out in groups of 4 is what it's telling you. So it's saying click yes to automatically insert 3 pages. So if you click yes, and like Mary showed us on the bottom, you know which page you're on. This is showing you 2 and 3 together because they're the inside page, and number 4 is the back. So if you knew you wanted to have a booklet that kind of folded in half that way, you could do that. If you wanted to have more pages, you can insert page, and it'll always do it in sets of 2, because in this particular case, it's a 8.5 by 11 folding in half. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing with that is that it gets tricky with printing. You want to make sure everything lays out right.
Why would page 1 and 4 be shown together? Because it's physically the same page.
That's a really good question. I think they just want you to see what the front, because when it's folded, you're really just seeing the front. This you're seeing together, but that, yeah. So I think they're kind of basing it on the way it's folded. Yeah, that's a good question, though. Because you're right, it would be unfolded, they'd be together. And when it prints it, they're together. So sometimes when you print out a booklet and you're looking like, why are those next to each other? It's because once you fold it, yeah, I've done that before. You can do cards, greeting cards. That'll give you templates, but you can also, and it's usually like one that folds up into like a quarter sheet. But if you go to the blank pages, I think it should give you options for that as well. Let's see. Business cards. Or envelopes, you know. If you wanted to custom make an envelope, and you can do that in Word too. Greeting cards, yeah. So it'll, same thing where it's groups of 4, because it's going to fold one sheet into 4, you know, quarters. So, well, this one folds horizontally. Yeah, so the first would be the front of the card, 2 and 3 would be the inside of the card, and 4 would be the back.
How did you add extra pages?
Yes.
Instead of 4?
Your insert, which again is my favorite tab, insert page.
Oh, okay.
And it'll ask, do you want it after or before? So if you've already started, like if you were making a booklet and you've already started and you realized, oh shoot, I need a page in between, you know, in the middle, it'll ask you where you want to put it, if you want it before the page you're on or after the page you're on.
You can't just add 2 pages?
It depends on what you're in. So if you're in like the booklet or the card or something that does it in sets of 2, it'll automatically add 2.
But for this booklet, it only says, okay, it only adds 4 at a time. What if your booklet only needs 6 pages?
Well, if you think about it, do we have another sheet of,
okay,
like,
got
if,
it.
because it's 2 sheets, you're always going to have 8, yeah, I know. You have to, like, think about it in terms of the way the page is laid out, yeah. Then you'd have blank. If you just wanted 6 pages, you'd have blanks in there somewhere, you know.
Yeah.
The only other thing I'll say is for flyers, if you are going to save the flyer and email it to someone or take it to a printer or whatever, always make it a PDF. PDF is the universal kind of file format that can be read by other programs. So I always go to File and Save As. Is that right? I guess Save As. Save As, let me just make sure that's right. Yeah, Save As, and then when you click down, it automatically gives you the chance to save it as a publisher file. But if you click this drop down, you can save it as a PDF. And then it will show you, it usually opens up the PDF and shows you, so you can see. And it usually looks pretty much the same as the publisher version. But it's just more universal, more people can usually open it. If you take something to Office Depot, they almost always want it as a PDF or, you know, so.
I also can't change anything on it, too.
That's exactly right. You can if you have certain, but yes, in theory, yes, you can't actually change anything on it. Right. So it makes it so that if you were trying to send it to someone, you wanted to make sure that it got printed properly or they couldn't, you know, accidentally delete something, then yeah, PDF will make it kind of more final that way. You can also just straight email it. So if you send email under this, if you go File, Send Email, it'll give you a couple options. You can send as message, which will, I think, keep it as a publisher. or send publication as PDF attachment. So then let's say you were just emailing it to someone right off the bat, you can just send it as a PDF attachment. So I will show you 2010 just to see the differences, and the main difference is that you get this nice, more advanced, this is called a ribbon. Would you call this a ribbon? Okay. Ribbon. And it makes it so that it just shortcuts things a little better. So rather than having to go insert picture, your home ribbon already has that option. As well as the draw text box, which is the same as that inserting the text box. Insert word art, that'll give you options for like different kind of fun things you can do with text. It's the same as Word. It should be all the same as Microsoft Word. The Align tab is there automatically, so you don't have to go find it. So if you, again, if you click on picture, it'll just automatically take you to inserting a picture. So if you have two of these guys, once you are clicked on it, it'll also automatically take you to the Format tab, which is how you change the, you know, the color and all that kind of stuff, and add the borders and all that, crop it. So that's kind of nice too. Let's say I want to go back home and I want to insert another picture. Oh, where's Pam? Okay. And I've got these two together, but I really want to make sure they're aligned on the top. My Align controls are right there rather than having to go search for them. Again, you have to have both highlighted, so if you click on one and shift, click on the other, it'll do both of them together, align, top, and now they're aligned on the top.
I've
So-
wondered how to do that for probably 10 years.
Oh, really? Oh, well, there you go. Now you know. Yep, that's how you align. If you had a bunch of things, let's see. If you had like, I'll just do another picture. What else do we have on here? Oh, that's nice. If you had a couple pictures and you wanted to, you liked the way they were together, but you wanted to like move the whole thing, if you click and you just highlight them all together in a box, they're all selected, and now you can move all of them together wherever you want. And you can also group them, and you can also ungroup them. So say you decide, okay, I really like how they are. I want to group them. Now you can always move them together because they're in a group. If you then decide, oh no, wait, that one has to be moved over, ungroup, then you can move that one where you want it, and then you can regroup. Oops. So that's kind of nice when you've got multiple things that you're moving around on a page. So you can move them together, put them where you want. Again, 2007 allows you to do all this. It's just an extra step to get there. So that it doesn't have this handy ribbon that kind of shows you everything. I will show you this real quick in case. Send backward and bring forward. Let's ungroup these. Actually, let's do this. Yeah, I'll ungroup them. Oops. Ungroup. So let's say I decided I wanted to do some kind of fun collage where, you know, I had things on top of each other. If I have this clicked and I send it backwards, it's going to go behind the other images, right? Mm-hmm. So you keep kind of clicking it backwards until it goes where you want it to go. But then I can bring it forward to bring it back in front of the others. So if you're creating some kind of a collage or montage, that comes in really handy because you can see what's behind what. But other than that, I think that's the main difference with 2010, just that it has the ribbon and makes things a little more easy to access because they're right there. And I do like how if you click on the picture, the Format toolbar automatically kind of pops up, just kind of makes it easier to see what you're doing. But again, with 2007, you just, you know, go to that menu and click Format, and then it's there. So not too much of a difference. Well, thanks, guys, for coming. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.